So today I'm going to be changing the sand in my pool filter. I really haven't done it since it was installed 4 or 5 years ago. So my pool isn't as clean as it could be. Seems a little murky. And then also when I vacuum up the fine silt that's at the bottom of the pool that I find every now and again, it tends to just blow out of the return jets. So that's one of the symptoms of the pool sand, the filter sand needing to be replaced. So I'm gonna change that out today. All right, so you can see here I've got a Hayward Pro Series. This is a high-rate sand filter. Down here I have the S244S, which S, I guess, the S at the end of it means it's a side mount, very flow valve. And then here you can see some more specs on it. You can see the specs here on the filtration area. Here's the important thing though here is the amount of sand required, what type of sand and the amount required. So I have 300 pounds required here. It comes in 50-pound bags, so I got 6 bags from my local pool supply store. So let's take a look at what we need to do. All right, so I'm on the other side of the filter now, and so first thing is we need to turn off the pump, so that therefore we can start relieving the pressure in there. So I'll turn the pump off, and then what you've got to do is there's a pressure relief valve at the top here, and the deal is just open that up. You can feel that coming out. See there's still some pressure in there. So the idea is just open this up and let all the pressure release. Over there I can feel it running through the pipes here, that pressure just releasing. And so I'll give that a couple of minutes and then we'll come back to this. This should be set, the Veriflow valve should be set to the closed position. So in my case that's around here. You can see there it's set to closed. Okay, the next thing that we've got to do is down here. You'll see somewhere at the bottom of the filter, you'll see there's a drain plug. So what we've got to do is remove that drain plug, let the filter drain out. I've got a really decent size set of pliers here. So I'll release that and let the water drain out. So that's off. You'll see it draining out there pretty slowly. Apparently this takes a few minutes as well. If you actually look inside that drain plug, this is very fine silt in there, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm hoping this filter will start to take out of the water now with new sand. So I'm gonna leave all of this just for a few minutes, let it all drain out, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove these 2 screws here, try and remove them evenly on the top, and then this whole this assembly will lift up off the top. I'll show you that once that gets under. Okay, now I'm going to start removing the screws here. So try and get that done evenly. Certainly when you're taking it off it's not that critical, but when you're putting it back, make sure you tighten this evenly on both sides, so you're not over tightening one side and then leaving the other side loose. So that's coming off now. Okay, I've taken the collar off, put the collar to one side, make sure you don't lose any of the nuts that come off on the collar, and then this, you just kind of wiggle this back and forth a little, and then it comes up. Now you'll see what we have is this baffle, this diffuser in the top here. So the idea is that should come out, and make sure you leave the air tube will stay in, and make sure that moves off to one side. Okay, next you'll see there's another plate in here underneath that diffuser. That comes out as well. The air tube, or the air breather tube, stays behind. And then what do we have? Well, we have, if you take a look in here, that's pretty nasty. You know, lots of pollen. you can see how all of the trash, there we go, now it's focused. You can see all of that junk settles on top of the sand. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to use duct tape to seal off. I'm going to clean this very carefully. I'm going to seal off the top here with duct tape to make sure that during the cleaning process I don't get any sand down into that pipe. And then I'm going to use my shop vac. I'm going to suck all of that out, and so let's check back in a little bit when I've got some of that done here. Okay, so I have that top pipe duct taped over quite securely so that absolutely no sand can get in there. And I have my shop vac all set up with Roxy checking it out. And so let's start. Turn this on. And I'll start vacuuming it out. It's probably going to be super noisy, so I'll just keep the video running for a couple of seconds and I'll turn it off. Okay, so I've sucked out most of the sand in my wet vac. My shop vac, as you can see, I've spread it. I actually used that sand on leaving it just in a kind of a muddy patch that I have here. But let's take a look inside now and see what you can see. So you see down there, those horizontal bars, they're called the laterals. And if you look closely at them, they have, they're basically, whoops, let me focus that in. They're basically, that's where they take their water in. So those have got to be, you don't want those things to be cracked. So you've got to inspect those, take a look at them. On some filters you can take them out, they fold up and you can pull the whole assembly out. On this you've got to unscrew each one. So I'm not going to do that. I've inspected them, they all look to be good. I've got most of the sand out. I suppose I could go further and just completely get the last tiny bit out, but I think I'm good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to replace the drain plug. There you can see it down at the bottom. I'm going to replace the drain plug. I'm going to fill it with about a foot of water, at least. Probably, if you can see the lower pipe there above the laterals, I'm definitely going to fill water. In fact, I may fill this thing up about half full, because what you don't want to do, you don't want to just dump sand in here on those laterals, kind of unprotected laterals. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill it with water, then start pouring the new sand in, and the water will kind of protect those laterals from the full force of the sand falling on them. So I'll fill it up, and we'll start that process. Start the process of putting the sand back in. So I have filled up, probably at least a foot, maybe a foot and a half of water in there. You can't really see the laterals anymore. They're obscured by the water. So what I'm going to start doing, remember this is still sealed. This is still sealed up with duct tape, this riser pipe here. I'm going to start putting in the sand. There's my sand, 6 50-pound bags. I'm going to start filling this up, and once it's all in there, I'll start the video again and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so you can see in there, filled up put the sand in. The water's pretty high now. That's still covered. That's probably, I'm going to take that duct tape off right before I close up the tank, before I put the last pieces in. But I just thought I'd also show you what I've got here, because I got at my pool store I got an O-ring for the top, and what I also have is I have some lubricant for the O-ring, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the O-ring that's on this that's on the cover here. See the blue O-ring there? I'm going to replace that, put some lubricant on it, put it back in. Although this O-ring looks in pretty good shape, but I'll replace it anyway. Okay, so right before it all gets closed up. I'll show you once I put all the pieces back in. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got all of the components reassembled in there as they were with the breathing tube. Now what I've got, I've also got the O-ring, the new O-ring on the cover here. I'm going to put that back in, make sure that's just sitting nicely in there. And then once that's nicely in place, I'm then going to put on the captivating ring, I guess you could call it, and screw that up, and then onto next steps. Once I got everything installed, turned on my pump, started my pump. Now I did leave this open until you see a steady stream of water coming out of it. Then you close that up again, and by the way, turn this to backwash. So this should be on backwash for I believe 2 to 3 minutes. What you want to wait for the sight glass to run clear, because of course there's a lot of dust and very, very fine particles in the sand that we dumped into the filter. So right now I'm letting it run, and in a couple of minutes when this thing runs clear, which it's almost clear now, but I think we'll be done then. Then I'm going to turn it to rinse, and then back to filter, and hopefully this cleans my pool.